Hello friends. So in last session we have gone through with the UPSC geography optional paper discussion. The first question I have taken up. In this session I will continue the discussion of the remaining question. Those who are having the question paper, so they can look out the question. Those who are not, they can get it from the description box. So let's begin. The question number 2A says, sequential changes in land use and land cover have brought global and regional ecological changes and imbalances. Elucidate. So the question has directly been uplifted from the environmental geography of paper 1 chapter 5, and if you will go with through with the syllabus, you will find directly it is mentioned as a global and regional ecological changes and imbalances. Now to answer this question, if you will look out the general structuring, as far as body is concerned, so in body you are supposed to write about the how the sequential changes in land use and land cover have brought effect of sequential changes in land cover and land use towards ecological changes and imbalances. So very interesting. No need to write, no need to just mention only the imbalances or negative aspect. So any of the ecological changes will be part of your body. So you are supposed to write ecological changes as well as imbalances. If you will look out what are the ecological changes that is going through, then you will find we have a phenomena like desertification, deforestation, we are facing the issue of wetland degradation, different places the water bodies are being encroached upon, and that water bodies encroached are having lots of effect like flood, droughts. If you will recall the very famous 2015 Chennai flood, so it was purely a man-made flood, and that was caused due to the changing land pattern. So all these things should be part of your body, that how the land is changing. Now the question is associated with the first part, that sequential changes in land cover. What are the sequential changes? So here you are not just supposed to write the recent changes that are happening, you need to trace it from the historical also. Like when the humans evolve on this planet, right from the beginning, the first major change has been associated with the agricultural activity. For the agricultural activity, some of the forest needs to be cleared off. So deforestation is not a new phenomenon. Deforestation is happening from the beginning of the human civilization. Not only the agriculture, even if the people wants the settlement, so be it your rural settlement, be it your urban settlement, for both the settlement we require land, and that is continued in the present time period. If you will look out that why the if you will just think that why the people in urban area, be it Mumbai, be it Delhi, be it Chennai, are encroaching on the land. So yes, there is a one aspect that the rules are not being followed. There is a allegation that there is a corruption, there is a nexus between the reality sector and the government. That is fine, but those people that are involved in this reality sector, they are encroaching upon the land because the land is one of the most precious things, and most of the people wants to live in the nearby urban area. So because there is demand for the housing, there is demand for the houses. That is why those people are trying to encroach upon the land. Now, you need to look out that whatever activity like deforestation, so saying deforestation is fine. If you will look out from the ecological perspective, that is fine, but deforestation is for what? Like in case of industrialization time period, in industrial time period, most of the forests are being cut, cleared off to just set up the industry or just extract some of the mineral resources. Like in our country, most of the central India, mineral deposits are in Chota Nagpur Plateau belt, in Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, where from time to time there has been allegation that lots of forest area is being degraded. But for what? To extract the minerals. Now, what is the need of mineral? Because through the minerals only you will have the industrialization. Like coal, but you will have some manganese, you will have iron ore. Iron ore, coal is very important for your iron and steel industry. Steel is considered as backbone of any country's development. In the modern time period, the development is measured through the use of steel. Anyway, so you have to write right from the beginning that what is the sequential land changes that has happened. So because ultimately all these aspects like desertification, deforestation, wetland degradation, floods, droughts, or you will have some of the, it is the effect of only land change, land cover only, that has led to the ozone depletion. So all these things needs to be written, and also the case study needs to be written. And in the case study, the best example I can give you, like you will have a hilly areas, floods, landslide is happening. Very famous Idukki landslide has happened. Then you will have a Chennai flood has happened. Very recently, Bangalore flood has happened. That is nothing but the resultant of ecological changes, and that. Even you can also write in this part the biodiversity hotspot. So mentioning of biodiversity hotspot is also can be given. In the biodiversity hotspot, two very important biodiversity hotspot which lies in India, if you will look out, that is, one is your Western Ghat and one is your Himalayan ecosystem. Now the question is, what is this biodiversity hotspot? So the biodiversity hotspot is primarily associated with the loss of species. So loss of species related to what? Might be the survival condition have changed. So it is not suitable for the survival of those species. Some of the species will become endangered, some of the species will become particularly extinct. So that is also the aspect of ecological changes and imbalances. Now in introduction, land use pattern, what is the meaning of land use pattern can be written. So the land use pattern, meaning of land use pattern can be highlighted. Now coming to the conclusion part, in conclusion part you can write that how these ecological changes and imbalances are threatening, these changes and imbalances are threatening survival on the planet. So they are threatening the survival on the planet. So if we need to survive, so we need to reverse, or at least try to, if we are not able to reverse all these changes, at least we should try to minimize the changes, because it's a more or less like a debate of development and conservation. Conservation is also needed, development is also needed. So we need to take out the middle path, like in the form of sustainable development. Sustainable development. So that approach needs to be incorporated, in particularly your conclusion. So in conclusion, you can write any of these. Either you need to write about the even some case studies can also be given, like ozone depletion. Ultimately it resulted into ozone hole. Then we have gone for the Montreal Protocol, Kigali Amendment. So Montreal Protocol have helped in almost reversing of most of the ozone hole, and it is expected that by 2070 almost most of ozone hole will get filled up or reversed up. So again there will be a thick layer of the ozone in stratosphere. That is nothing but the some of the Montreal Protocol, and also it is from the participation of the stakeholders. So it is not only because of the conventions, because of the treaty. In other sectors also we have lots of convention, lots of treaties, but also this is one area where the governments, organizations have understood and they have actively participated to reverse it. So this is how you can write this answer. One more thing that as I said in the last session also, in this session also, in the examination hall, examination condition, if you have written few of the valid point, it is not necessary that you should write all the points, because most of the students must have practiced this question, but in spite of that you will find some of the students might not be able to write all the points. So if you are not able to write all the points, so nothing, need not to worry. The only thing that you need to understand, whether you have understood the question properly and you have tried to write in that direction, like deforestation, issue of some of the biodiversity loss, issue of some of the species are the habitat loss is happening, species are being lost. Like you will have a very famous case of tiger. So tigers, some of the tiger population was declining, and then we have started the Save the Tiger campaign, and it has given a very good result, and now the tiger population have increased. Then we will have the case of like cheetah. So cheetah was it became extinct, and again we are trying to reintroduce. So that is nothing but just to understand the true nature of the question and within what backdrop the question is being asked, and what some of the key points needs to be written in your answer. Alright, moving to the next question. Explain how various aspects of channel morphology are used in transportation, settlement and land use planning. So the question is from the geomorphology. If you will look out the structuring, how to structure, then you will find in this question how various aspects of channel morphology are used in transportation. Use of channel morphology in transportation settlement and land use planning. And land use planning, flood control and flood management. Now, very interesting. As far as introduction is concerned, in this type of question, there is no need to go for much deliberation. You can directly start writing the meaning of channel morphology. So 15-20 words. You can write about the channel type, channel pattern, channel geometry, the speed of the water, the flow of the water. So all these things can be written in the introduction part. So when you will go through with the channel morphology, you will come across that it is comprised of all these aspects of the channel. No need to write about all those things like channel width, channel depth, what is Thalweg, uski jarurat nahi hai. So directly you can write about some of the aspects of channel morphology, but more importantly, because it's a 15 marker. So the question is of 15 marker. So you are supposed to answer in 200 words. So that is maximum, not more than this. तो अगर आप 15-20 words का introduction लिखेंगे, then you are left with not more than 170-180 words. अब इस 180 words में you need to focus that you have to tackle transportation also, you need to tackle the settlement also, you need to tackle the land use planning also, you need to tackle flood control, you need to tackle flood management. So here the main objective, or you can say the main aspect of handling this question is not that you should just write about one aspect. Rather, at least you should touch upon these 5 aspects. और उसके साथ में आपको conclusion भी रखना है. So conclusion के लिए if you will write let's say 20 word, so maximum you are supposed to write 150 words for the body. Now coming to the use of transportation. If you will look out the channel morphology or the role of the channel, most of the inland drainage that are being developed. So in the inland drainage, in the modern time period, we need to know the knowledge of the depth of the water, flow of the water, whether it is a perennial river or not, whether it's a alluvial floodplain or whether it's a bedrock channel. So alluvial channel, bedrock channel, the knowledge will definitely help in out. The settlement, in case of most of the settlement you will find there are various type of settlement, and one very prominent settlement happens to be the riverside settlement. In fact, if you will historically look out, you will find most of the cities like even Indus Valley civilization was also located, settled nearby the riverine area. So settlement is basically associated with the particularly the knowledge about the channel, because even in present time period also you will find majority of the population you will find is concentrated in northern plain. And why in northern plain? Because in northern plain rivers are perennial in nature. Rivers are having the water throughout the year. So because the river is having water throughout the year, so people will have access to the for irrigation. So they will have access to the water for the irrigation, they will have access to the water for the drinking purpose. So knowledge of channel morphology is also useful in case of transportation. Like you can also think like this, कि अभी government, because there has been lots of congestion in our cities are known for haphazard growth और urbanization की बहुत सारी problems हमारी country में है. To just decongest some of the urbanization urban areas, earlier we have gone for the settlement of satellite town हमने establish किए. But still there are a lot of issues in the settlement. तो हमने कुछ नए concept के साथ we have started coming out with the concept of smart cities. Smart cities में idea ये है कि बहुत सारी existing cities को ही smart बनाया जाए with the use of more and more information communication technology. But also there is a approach, there is an idea that some of the new cities will be developed. जो जहाँ पे भी new cities develop होगी, like let's say we want to go for the new development of the city in case of Andhra, in case of Telangana, in case of Gujarat. So we'll look out, our priority will be that this city should be on the river side, on the river bank. So the knowledge of channel, knowledge of morphology will be highly helpful. Then in land use planning, you can give the reference of most of the hydroelectricity project, multi-purpose river valley projects, is associated with the channel morphology. So multi-purpose river valley project is also associated with that. Now coming to the flood control, you will find some of the rivers that are primarily flowing in the alluvial channel. So those who are associated with the alluvial channel, they are known for bringing the flood year upon year. Like some of the rivers in Bihar, in Assam, in West Bengal, these rivers are notorious for bringing the flood. So in general, flood is not only being caused because of the perennial nature of the river. Flood is being caused due to the various reasons, but in case of flood control, the knowledge of the flow, from which direction the river is flowing, which would from different streams it is water, this river is collecting the water and then taking to the different part of the region. So that knowledge will helpful in case of flood control. In case of flood control, flood management, we have the non-engineering methods and also engineering method. In most of the non-engineering method like embankment, or you will have a not allowing the settlement of the people in the low-lying low-lying area of the river, or deforestation, managing the deforestation or promoting the afforestation. These are some of the important tools we have. But as far as engineering technique is concerned, the one very important engineering technique is your multi-purpose river valley project. So multi-purpose river valley projects is not only helping in easy accessibility of the water, is not only helping in the free accessibility of the water, but also it is very much helping in the flood management and flood control. So all these things can be written. Now coming to the conclusion part, as far as conclusion part, you can write that in the present time period, country like India, the water is one of the most precious thing, because country like India is an agricultural based country, and in agricultural based country almost 90% the water requirement is for the agriculture. So in other words, you can say agriculture highly depends on the water. So the water is very important, and from that perspective the knowledge of channel morphology is highly helpful in the economic development of that region. So this is how you can highlight the role of channel morphology knowledge in economic development of the region. So that is how you can answer this question. All right. So moving to the next question. Question number 2C. What is the relationship between ocean currents and global surface wind system? Explain with examples. How does the gyre in the northern hemisphere differ from the ones in the southern hemisphere? So the question is basically divided in two different parts. So if the question is being divided in two different parts, so when you will answer the question, it should also be divided in two different parts. So how you will plan your answer, how you should approach your answer. What is relationship between ocean currents and global surface wind? So relation between ocean current and wind needs to be highlighted. That is one component, one part. The second part is explain with examples. So the second part you need to write with examples. How does the gyre in northern hemisphere, so gyre of northern hemisphere different from southern hemisphere. So this is exactly how you need to plan your answer. So you need to write both the gyres, that how it is different in case of northern, in case of southern hemisphere. So as far as the first part is, it is not asking that what is ocean current, but the question is primarily from the ocean topic. So ocean current पे based topic पे question है. So in introduction, first try to write about what is ocean currents. So you can simply write that it is nothing but the very famous Trujillo and Thurman's definition, like ocean currents are nothing but these are the water masses in motion in the oceanic water. So water masses in motion in oceanic water is simply referred as oceanic current. Oceanic currents is being categorized on the basis of where they are. So we have the surface oceanic currents, we have the deep oceanic currents. Surface oceanic currents represent the 10% of the water, deep oceanic currents represent the 90% of the oceanics of the water. Then oceanic currents, surface oceanic currents is also being categorized in two categories. So these are being categorized in two categories, like you will have a warm ocean currents and the deep cold ocean current. So all these things you can write. Now coming to here, relation between the ocean currents and the wind. So you need to write that how the oceanic currents are originating. Oceanic currents are originating and they are getting affected due to the various region. So the flow of oceanic currents is being associated with the various region, but the most important controlling factor is the wind, because it is the flowing of the wind, it is the planetary winds, trade winds, then you will have the westerlies, and in fact it is the trade wind which is primarily associated with initiating the movement, because initiation of the movement of the oceanic water is associated with the frictional drag. So it is the frictional drag which is initiating the movement in the vicinity of ITCZ, and later on this ITCZ initiated flow of the water, then it will get diverted when it come across with the continental side, land side, then it will diverted in the northern hemisphere, northern pole, southern pole, and then ultimately it will get affected by the Coriolis force, and the entire dynamics of gyre will evolve. So this gyre that is coming into the picture, what is gyre? Gyre is nothing but the flow of the oceanic water in the subtropical area. So in subtropical area, over the oceans, water flow in a definite pattern, and water flow like a rivers are flowing over the oceanic surface. So in a fixed pattern, the waters are flowing in a circular manner, and that circulation is simply referred as gyre, and this circulation over the ocean is being initiated by the wind. So any of the circulation you can take it. Total primarily we have the 5 subtropical gyre, 2 in the Atlantic Ocean, 2 in Pacific Ocean, 1 in Indian Ocean. In Atlantic Ocean, both the northern and southern hemisphere we have the 2 gyre. In Pacific also we have 1 in northern, 1 in southern. But in case of Indian Ocean, northern oceans is primarily contained by the land part. So the northern side is being surrounded by the land part dominates. That is why we have the fully development of the gyre is only in case of southern ocean. So total we have the 5 subtropical oceanic gyre. As far as these oceanic gyres are concerned, if you will look out the flow of these oceanic gyre, if you will try to look out from the perspective of Atlantic Ocean, then you will find you can use the atlas. So you will find in ocean these gyres are flowing in a circulation. So circulation will be like clockwise in northern hemisphere and anti-clockwise in southern hemisphere. You need to write with the example, so it will be better if you will take the reference from, let's say, Atlantic. So in Atlantic, northern gyre primarily formed by the north equatorial current, then this boundary is being formed by the Gulf Stream, this part is formed by the North Atlantic Drift, and then the Canaries current. Similarly, you need to take out the southern part. In southern part, you need to refer the South Equatorial Current, Brazilian Current, West Wind Drift, and the particularly Venezuela Current. After that, you need to highlight that why the eastern boundary current. In that gyre, you will find there are 4 different boundaries. So you will find there are 4 different boundaries. One in the northern hemisphere, southern boundary, western boundary, northern boundary, eastern boundary. In case of southern hemisphere, you will find there is a northern boundary, there is a western boundary, there is a southern boundary and the eastern boundary. In both the hemisphere, be it a northern gyre or southern gyre, the eastern boundary will be formed by the cold ocean current. So why the eastern boundary currents are the cold ocean current, be it in case of North Atlantic Canaries, or you will have the Venezuela currents or California currents or the Peruvian current, Humboldt current or the West Australian current. So you have to write about that, that is simply associated with the cold water upwelling, cold water upwelling. So this is how you need to write, and you need to identify with example the difference of the gyre. So in the case of northern hemisphere, gyre is circulating in a clockwise manner, and in southern hemisphere it is circulating in a anti-clockwise manner. Now you also need to conclude. So the best conclusion for related to the wind or ocean current is these oceanic currents are the medium of energy transport, because on the earth's surface, earth is receiving the primary source of energy on the earth is sunlight. So earth is primarily receiving the energy from the sunlight through the insolation. So insolation से mainly energy आ रही है. But if you will look out the insolational energy, then you will find this insolational energy is not equally distributed, because the sun will always be within the Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn throughout the year. So the tropical region receives more energy, whereas the polar region, higher latitude, will always have the lesser energy. So over the period of time, there will be energy differentiation. And if this energy differentiation will continued, so एक ऐसा समय आएगा कि ट्रॉपिकल एरिया में आपका रहना मुश्किल हो जाएगा, टेम्परेचर इतना ज़्यादा बढ़ जाएगा, whereas in polar area टेम्परेचर इतना ड्रॉप हो जाएगा that it will not be habitable. लेकिन ऐसा होता नहीं है. क्यों नहीं होता? Because of the we have a natural mechanism to transport the energy. So natural mechanism to transport the energy on the earth surface is, one is wind and one is your ocean current. So you need to just highlight this, that this oceanic currents are an efficient method to transfer energy. Generally what happens, the heat is being transferred, the extra amount of heat is being transferred to the higher latitude. Higher latitude पे जाती है. In case of higher latitude, the salinity is high, density is high. Because of the more denser, more saline water, the water is having tendency to sink. So surface oceanic currents take up the heat from the lower latitude, they take it to the higher latitude, and in higher latitude there will be sinking of the water, and then there will be initiation of the deep oceanic current, which will initiate the global conveyor belt. Global conveyor belt. In the Atlantic Ocean, it is simply referred as Atlantic meridional overturning circulation. Over the period of time, this is also getting impacted by the climate change, by the sea level changes. So even that aspect can also be discussed in the question of global ecological changes. So this is how you need to handle this question. Moving to the next question. Question number 3a. Plants and animals that exist in a particular ecosystem are those that have been successful in adjusting to their habitat and environmental condition. Elucidate with the example. So, this question is primarily from the biogeography chapter, that is chapter number 4. Chapter number 4, you will find there is a topic called factors of distribution of plants and animals. So, from that topic this question is being picked up. If you will look out the general pattern of answering this question, that is structuring of the question is, question is asking simply plants and animals that exist in a particular ecosystem. So, let us say you will have the tiger is existing in India, or let us say you will have panda is existing in India, or any species existing in any particular ecosystem, are those that have successful in adjusting to their habitat and environmental condition. Elucidate with example. Now, what is this meaning of elucidate? This keyword, this directive word elucidate, is primarily refers to the making it clear. Elucidate का मतलब ही होता है making it clear with example. तो जहां पे भी आपको elucidate पूछा जा रहा है, you need to understand that you need to write the example. But your job is being almost, you can say, UPSC is making your job little bit easier by writing elucidate with example. तो एग्जामिनर खुद आपसे कह रहा है कि आप elucidate करिए, making it clear करिए, लेकिन उसके साथ में एग्जाम्पल भी दीजिए. एग्जाम्पल बहुत ही जरूरी है. सिंपल क्वेश्चन, सिंपल थिंग इज दैट you need to highlight that why some of the organisms are present, because you need to trace the history. So, present plant and animal were able to adapt to changing conditions. Within this, around this you need to write your answers. तो ये जो changes हुए हैं, कौन कौन से changes हुए हैं, what are the some of the changes that you should highlight? So you need to primarily talk about the different ice ages, because the earth has witnessed different ice ages. Then you will have a mass extinction. In last 250 million years, if you will look out the different theories related to the continent and ocean building, so we have a primarily the idea of continental drift theory of Davis, a continental drift theory of Wegener, sorry. So if you will look out the Wegener's idea, so Wegener have suggested that how the continents, earlier it was unified and then it has divided in different parts. Initially Pangea was there, then it has been divided. So within that perspective, when some of the species, let's say, had evolved over the particularly Angara land, Gondwana land, then it has been distributed to different parts. Then you will have a very good example of, let's say, marsupial animals. Marsupial animals is being referred as pouched animal. So babies they keep in pouched. From the marsupial, then you have came out with the mammals. So mammals were like their babies will grow in the particular mother's womb. So if you will look out that earlier the planet was being dominated by the marsupial animals, but from the marsupial then you have came the mammals. So over the period of time, marsupials were not able to keep pace with the changing conditions, and also they were not able to survive side by side with the mammals. So in most part of the planet, most part of the different continent, you will find marsupials have been wiped out. The only place where the marsupial survived is the place that is considerably different, that is Australia. So Australia, if you will look out the geographical location, so this continent was considerably distinct. So all these things you need to write. You need to write about the Pleistocene ice age. You can give the references in the present time period, anthropogenic example like climate change, global warming. So you can give the role of climate change also, global warming also, about this. Even some of the organism, they will be adapted, like they will go for some of the changing their habitat. They will become migratory. Like you will have Amur falcon in the higher latitude. So they know in the higher latitude, if you will look out the species, so in the present time period also in the polar area nearby the poles, the winters are very severe. So to save themselves from the severe winter, what they are supposed to do is either they will go for the hibernation or they will be migratory. So they are capable of migrating, they are capable of hibernating. So you can give the example of some of the, like Amur falcon is there, then you will have a polar bear is there, which is known for hibernation. So they can survive without any coming out of ice for almost 5-6 months to save themselves from the cold winter condition. So all these things needs to be written. Moving to the next question. Question number 3b. With suitable examples, describe the impact of movement of air masses on weather and winds in different part of the continent. Now, the question is very much from the known territory, so most of the students were knowing the answer of this question. So as far as general structuring is concerned, introduction, it will be easy to start with writing about meaning of air mass, or what is air mass. You can also write about the different types of air mass. You can also immediately start writing about the breeding ground, air masses. So from where the air masses are originating. Then coming to the main body, it is asking you to write about the different air masses, suitable examples. So like you can write about the continental, tropical air masses. So air masses that are mainly originating from the hot desert, or you can write about the continental, polar air masses. So like the air masses that are mainly originating from the northern Canada, Russian Siberia, the impacts of movements of air masses. Generally, the most of the air masses after the initiation, they move under the influence of, like in higher latitude, under the influence of westerlies. So in mid and higher latitude, they move from the west to east. So they will move from the west to east, that is under the influence of the westerly. Air masses will carry the important characteristic, physical characteristic. They will have homogeneous characteristic for the thousands of kilometers in the length, hundreds of kilometers in the width, few kilometers tens of kilometer in the depth. The air masses will have a homogeneous temperature and also homogeneous humidity condition. So, if the some of the air masses are developing over the oceanic surface in the summer season, so obviously they are having the moisture, and if they are having the moisture, they are capable of bringing the moisture to the area where they are moving out, and ultimately they will bring the rainfall. So, mostly they affect the weather based on their own temperature and humidity. So, based on the temperature and humidity, these air masses will affect region where they are moving. Especially the Europe and North America is highly affected by the air masses. One more very important characteristic which most of you must be knowing, that whenever two contrasting air masses comes toward each other, then the frontal activity happens. In case of higher latitude, if you will look out the temperature, so in case of higher latitude, the temperature are considerably low, and in fact in the zone of polar easterly, so in the polar easterly zone you will find the winds is so much cold that it is not capable of holding the moisture. So polar easterly is not having the moisture, तो उस रीजन में हायर लैटिट्यूड रीजन में बारिश विंड की वजह से थोड़ा मुश्किल है. सो वहाँ पे भी बारिश जो भी हो रही है, दैट इज बिकॉज ऑफ द फ्रंटल एक्टिविटी, एंड इन दैट फ्रंटल एक्टिविटी द इम्पॉर्टेंट रोल इज बीइंग प्लेड बाय द एयर masses. So that is how you need to write. Now as far as conclusion is concerned, so this part of the front and associated in case of higher latitude, the front is nothing but the frontogenesis is also referred as cyclogenesis. You can give the references of front and temperate cyclone, and this front and temperate cyclone is almost their economy, agriculture, vegetation, most of the settlement definitely is being affected by these frontal activities. So from that perspective, air masses are very important climatic phenomena, specifically for the mid and higher latitude. Moving to next question, discuss the role of slope, altitude and relief in landscape development. Now, this question is basically from the geomorphology. अगर आप क्वेश्चन देखेंगे तो सिंपली इट इज आस्किंग अबाउट द डिस्कस. सो डिस्कस द रोल ऑफ स्लोप, एल्टीट्यूड एंड रिलीफ. तो बॉडी में जो आपको लिखना है मेनली रोल ऑफ स्लोप, altitude, relief. In general, all these terms are being used as synonymously, but if all the three has been used, so try to think that there must be some of the differences. So those differences you need to appreciate, and then it is asking the landscape development. So the question is asking the landscape development. As far as landscape is concerned, we have a landform development theories. As far as landscape development in true sense, the true meaning of landscape is different. Landscape is something, some area where you will have the naturally formed phenomena is there, like you will have the vegetation is there, you will have the mountains are there, but also you will have the man-made. So some forest has been there, some settlement is there. So landscape is a much wider term. But in most of the modern geomorphologists, most of the modern geomorphologists, they are not of this favor that both the landscape and landform should be used synonymously. But there are different geomorphologists who consider that landscape and landforms are synonymous. So they use this landform, but the true meaning, as I said, that the true meaning of landscape is different. But as far as this question is concerned, if you will look out, So you need to tackle this question from this perspective, where you are highlighting some of the landscape development also, like you can give the references of settlement, you can give the references of some of the agricultural activity, some of the forest land, but also you need to treat it some of the landforms. So you need to give the references of like valleys, gorge, canyon, waterfall. So these things. So you need to treat it like both the aspects of landform as well as landscape. And what is the role of slope altitude? If you will look out the classical theory of the geomorphology, that is landform development, you will find both Davis and Peng, they have considered the role of slope also, they have considered the role of altitude is very important, because be it your Davis idea of cycle of erosion, in that cycle of erosion, he simply talked about the rapid upliftment. तो एक बार rapid upliftment हो गया, altitude आ गया, then altitude के बाद ही आपका first cycle, first stage will begin. So the first stage, that is youthful stage, is associated with the altitude. Relief का क्या role है? Almost आप देखते चले जाइए, youthful stage, maturity stage, old stage. In every stage he is referring the landform development, the length of the cycle is associated with the relief. Similar is case of your waxing, waning, constant phase of constant growth of the Peng. So in both the Peng and in idea of particularly your Davis, there is a role of altitude and relief. In fact, if you will look out from the perspective of soil development, so development of the soil is very much associated with the slope and relief. In case of mountainous area, where you will have this steep slope, there will be always the soil will be very thin soil. So soil that will develop will be a thin soil. So the vegetation that will develop in those areas, vegetation will be almost, vegetation is the assemblage of, vegetation is the resultant of both soil as well as rainfall. But if you will look out the agriculture, so agriculture will not be that much productive. And if agriculture is not that much productive, means you need large scale of the land. तो छोटी लैंड में, छोटे साइज के लैंड में प्रोडक्टिविटी कम है, तो आपकी फूड रिक्वायरमेंट नहीं पूरी होगी. दैट इज वाई इन माउंटेनस एरिया यू विल फाइंड life is not that much easy. So that is why you will find always in the mountainous area there is a scattered population. So scattered settlement will grow. And invariably throughout the planet you will find most of the mountainous area where you will have the steep slope, high altitude, very rugged topography, physiography is also very harsh, climatic condition is harsh. So here you will find the majority of these area is being inhabited by the tribes. Tribal population is being dominating. So this is how you can tackle this question. Moving to the next question. Fourth A. So there has been some confusion by some of the students because there is a difference in हिंदी में सागर सतह के तापमान में वृद्धि का गंभीर परिणाम होता है. इससे संबंधित विश्व में संभाव्य परिवर्तनों एवं खतरों का विस्तृत वर्णन कीजिए. सो हिंदी अगर आप देखेंगे तो वहां पे सागर सतह के तापमान की बात हो रही, दैट इज ओशियानिक सी सरफेस टेम्परेचर. लेकिन जब आप इंग्लिश में पढ़ेंगे तो इंग्लिश का जो क्वेश्चन था दैट इज राइज ऑफ सरफेस टेम्परेचर ब्रिंग सीवियर कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस. जनरली बहुत सारे स्टूडेंट ने इसको प्रॉपरली इंटरप्रेट किया है कि अगर हमें कॉन्टिनेंटल पार्ट पे या इन जनरल टेम्परेचर की बात होती तो इन जनरल टेम्परेचर में ओनली राइज इन टेम्परेचर वी रेफर, वी डोंट कॉल इट राइज इन सरफेस टेम्परेचर. बट एनीवे इफ एनी ऑफ द स्टूडेंट्स हैव ओनली रिटन some of the students have, let's say, written only about the rise of temperature over the continent, over the planet, so need not to worry, because in the rise of temperature over the continent also there is some form of the confusion. So definitely you will get the leverage, but as far as the examiner is concerned, it's simply a typological error. which should not be there from organization like UPSC, such a prestigious organization, लेकिन हो गया है. But जो main intention है examiner का to ask about the rise of sea surface temperature. So sea surface temperature के rise से क्या effect होगा, bring severe consequences, elaborate the potential changes and threats associated with it in the world. So if you will look out, so in introduction, you can simply talk about the sea surface temperature, or you can write, you can talk about the source of heat over or in oceanic water. So as far as the oceanic water is concerned, mainly insolational heat is there. So the significant heat is coming from the insolation, but also some small proportion of the heat is coming from the underwater volcanic eruption. Also there is some form of the conduction heat from underlying mantle convective cell. We call it simply the surface heat over the ocean, but definitely these are not that much significant. So these are less significant. Most significant is your insolational heat. That is the general pattern of insolation or main source of heat. And also there is a very efficient system of heat transfer in the form of ocean current. We can last few decades, in fact in last century also you can say, the temperature is continuously increasing. And why this temperature is increasing? Because of the man-made activity. Man-made activity like more and more greenhouse gas emission, more and more greenhouse gas emission is associated with the industrialization. So greenhouse gas emission which is associated with the industrialization, that happens to be the main reason for that. Now the question is asking about the mainly sea surface temperature rise. So what are the some potential causes this sea surface temperature rise is capable of? So it is case of marine heat wave. So in some of the area, if there is a very rapid change in the temperature, so that can causes the marine heat wave. Also it is associated with the tropical cyclone phenomena. So the cases of tropical cyclone will be more. In ocean we have both the oceanic currents, cold oceanic currents and the warm oceanic current. If the cold oceanic current, if the temperature is rising in any area in general, so the cold oceanic current will become less efficient. So if the cold oceanic current become less efficient, means they will warm. So like very famous instance we have the El Nino. So phenomena like El Nino will become more frequent. More frequent El Nino phenomena means like the entire teleconnections, like you will have the flooding condition in case of South America, drought like condition in Australia, India. So the consequences is related to that. Also phenomena like Indian Ocean dipole. So Indian Ocean dipole phenomena is becoming more and more frequent. Some of the currents like North Atlantic drift. North Atlantic drift is very important because North Atlantic drift is carrying the heat to the Northern Europe. So Northern Europe heat is being taken, but if it will become more warm, so obviously there will be more heat that will be transported to the Northern Europe, and the countries like Norway, Sweden, Finland, the Scandinavian countries will get highly affected. Also the phenomena like deep ocean current, it will get also impacted, that is Atlantic meridional overturning circulation, it will also get impacted. Why? Because whenever there will be high temperature, sea surface temperature, there will be a melting of glacier, and melting of glaciers in polar area. Melting of glacier in polar area, what it will cause is, in polar area, subpolar area, the oceanic water is going deeper because of the high density. High density is caused due to the cold water. So if the water temperature is going up, so obviously the water is becoming less denser, so it is less favorable for the salinity, less favorable for the sinking. One more thing, because in case of higher latitude, water is very much saline, but if there is a melting of glacier means there will be addition of the fresh water. So fresh water और add किया जाएगा. अगर fresh water और add किया जाएगा, so again this sinking of the water will not be efficient. और अगर sinking of the water is not efficient, so definitely this entire Atlantic meridional overturning circulation or deep ocean current, conveyor belts will get affected. Conveyor belts अगर आपकी affect होंगी, so obviously there will be effect over the upwelling. So cold upwelling effect होगी. So we will enter in a kind of loop. So where one thing is connected with the other thing. So all the things will get affected. So all these things needs to be written. Even in case of marine heat wave, तो marine heat wave में जब भी आपका temperature बढ़ेगा, there will be expansion. So the expansion of water, so the sea level will also rise. So sea level rise is not only related with the melting of the glaciers. Sea level rise is simply associated with the sea surface temperature. Also you can give the reference of coral bleaching. Coral is one of the most important organism of the ocean, and it is also sometimes considered as indicative of the health of the global environment. So अगर आपका temperature बढ़ेगा, so large scale coral bleaching होगी, and coral reef is very important system because it is spread over the 1%, less than 1% area of the ocean, but in fact it represents almost 25, it is home to 25, 1/4 of all the marine organism. Moving to the next question. Describe how short-term variation in temperature are related to the process of receiving energy from the sun to the earth's surface and dissipating it to the atmosphere. Question is very straightforward from the climate, and question is also from the very known territory. लेकिन फिर भी कुछ स्टूडेंट्स को प्रॉब्लम हुई थी, बट एज फार एज मोस्ट ऑफ द स्टूडेंट्स हु आर पार्ट ऑफ माय टेस्ट सीरीज, जो मेरे साथ टेस्ट लिख रहे थे, जिससे भी बात हुई, ऑलमोस्ट मेजॉरिटी ऑफ देम, so at least I have most of the students, at least you can say more than 75% student ने ये fourth question attempt किया, because in the first question rise of surface temperature was part of the my test, the question, और दूसरा भी question that is primarily associated with the heat budget. So बहुत ही straight forward easy question है, heat budget का question है, because it is talking about the short term variation in the temperature. तो जो variation का होता है short term, अगर आप variation देखेंगे तो there are two variation, that is spatial variation and the temporal variation. तो spatial variation की अगर हम बात करेंगे तो that is your related to the places, temporal variation की बात करेंगे तो time. तो short term जो पूछा गया that is related to the time, and in time the most important, you can say the most short term is your day and night, that is diurnal. तो जो diurnal temperature variation होता है on the earth surface, that is simply because of the normal heating and cooling. Earth gets heated up during daytime and earth loses its heat during the night time. तो earth की जो heating होती है, the heating of the earth is associated with the incoming short wave solar radiation. So earth gets heated through this incoming short wave solar radiation, and the loss of the heat from the earth surface is primarily associated with the outgoing long wave terrestrial radiation. So it is from the outgoing long wave terrestrial radiation. So question is simply associated with this heat budget, but here also in case of heat budget, it is asking the and dissipating to the atmosphere. So when you will write about the heat budget, the different aspect of the heat budget, what is the role of cloud, how the energy is being efficiently transferred, what proportion of energy is captured by the atmosphere, then atmosphere is also getting heated from the below, why the atmosphere is getting heated from the below. So all these things when you will write, then you will write that there has been a long-term changes in that atmosphere primarily due to more and more release of greenhouse gases. So, in conclusion, you can bring the discussion of particularly climate change. So, in that you can bring the discussion of climate change. So, this is how you need to tackle this question. Moving to the last question of this section. With the help of suitable sketches, describe the mountain genesis and mountain types. Give suitable example from various mountain system of the world. Again, very comparatively easy question. The question is from the geomorphology. So, question is from the geomorphology. It is asking about the help of suitable sketches. तो आपको एक diagram draw करना है. Mountain genesis and mountain type. Mountain genesis is nothing but formation of the mountain. So, in a way you can say the question is about the mountain orogeny. So, generally हमारी दो mountain orogeny theories which is more popular and you need to focus is, one is geosyncline theory. So, different proponents have given the geosyncline theory, but the most popular one is the Kober's geosyncline. So, Kober's geosyncline, and in modern time period different proponent has given and the theory, but the most popular one is your, most modern one is your plate tectonic theory. So, briefly you need to write about the Kober's idea, you need to write about the plate tectonic theory. As far as types of mountains are concerned, so we have the different criteria. So, like based on the time period when they have been formed, like we have a Precambrian mountain, we have a Caledonian mountain, we have a Hercynian mountain, we have a tertiary mountain. Also we have one more classification which is very popular, like fold mountain. Fold mountains are referred as true mountain because all the other mountains are only mountain like structure. So, we have the fold mountain, we have the block mountain, we have volcanic mountain, we have relict mountain. Like you will have very famous fold mountain, Alps is there, Rockies are there, Andes are there, Atlas is there, Himalaya is there. In block mountain, one of the best example, you will have the your Satpuras are there, your Mahadev hills are there. Then you will have very famous Black Forest mountain is there. Then in case of volcanic, like you will have the very famous Fuji is there. In relict mountain, like you will have the Araulis are there, Appalachians are there. So these are some of the examples that you need to write the examples also, and you need to give the genesis also. Now moving to the section B of questions. So in section B, question number 5 was compulsory question. So in 5 you have the 5 different questions, and all the questions are compulsory. And in question number 5, there has been a question from all the 5 chapters. So one question from thought, one question from economic geography, one question from population and settlement, one question from regional planning. So one question from the models, theories and laws. So first question, analyze the effect of globalization on languages. So if you will look out this question, this is from the thought perspectives in human geography, the second part. First part deals with the evolution of the geography as a discipline. The second part deals with the culture, races, tribes, so languages. So from that, as far as languages are concerned, languages is simply the mode of, you can say, transferring the ideas, transferring the, it's a way of communication. Language have very important role to play in the global world order. So in all those things we have the very important role of the languages. uh, even this language was very much prevalent in all the earlier civilizations. So this is not a new thing that is being developed by the, or you can say discovered by the modern men. So it was known to almost most of the people. Might be their language were different, their dialect is there, they have different characters, but language was existing. Over the period of time, it has been seen that globalization is giving a lot of effect to the languages. As far as present time period, some of the most popular language in the worldwide you will find, it happens to like Chinese is there, Spanish is there, English is there, Arabic is there, Hindi is there. So we have the different languages are there, but over the period of time you will find globalization have brought the world together. Why the globalization have brought world together? Because there has been more economic opportunity. Economic opportunity, like if you will look out in related to, let's say, India. So Indian service sector have over the period of time has grown. Our information technology, computer-led sector have grown. So in this information technology or computer-led sector, when you are working for some particular country, so you need to communicate. So might be the person is more comfortable in Spanish, more comfortable in Chinese, you are more comfortable in Bengali or Hindi, but you will require a common language. So over the period of time, a common language will evolve, and this common language is nothing but purely based on the economic aspect. So it is purely on the economic aspect. Also, over the period of time, let's say someone from the India is moving to some different part of the world where English is being spoken, or some people from the Arab, they are moving to the area where the Chinese are being spoken. So over the period of time, they will get affected by the local languages. This local languages will over the period of time, they will particularly adopt to that languages. So globalization, migration, economic opportunities. Like in India, you will find that there has been a more economic opportunities if you are there is a, of course the government is trying very hard, but in reality what is that if you are comfortable in one particular set of the language like English, so you will have a lots of economic opportunity, and people are more concerned about the economic opportunity because the economic opportunity, the job is more important for a youth. So because of that, there has been lots of effect over the languages. Yes, it's a harsh reality that lots of languages are not being spoken. There is very less number of speaker are there, but related to few of the languages. So this is how you can write. Moving to the next question. Shifting global trade patterns create new opportunities. Examine this statement. So shifting global trade patterns. So one thing is clear that the trade pattern is shifting. So how it is shifting? So if you will look out this shifting of global trade pattern, so this is shifting is primarily led by the liberalization of 1950s. Then you will have most of the shift is being associated with the 90s, when you will have more and more information technology, its role have grown. So information technology, IT led services, over the period of time it has grown. So there has been shift from the north to south, there has been shift from the west to east. China is becoming more and more dominant, and earlier it was most of the import was being dominated by the western countries, northern countries, and most of the export was being dominated by the western countries, European countries, North America. But now that export domination is being taken over by the country like China, and India is also almost very much growing. We call it as emerging market economy IMF call these countries as emerging market economy. So within that backdrop, you need to write the opportunity. So opportunity like youths are getting more jobs. There will be total overall growth of the country, like the kind of economic growth you are seeing in case of India, in China and Indonesia. So all these things needs to be written. Moving to the third question, examine the morphological factors that influence the origin and growth of towns. As far as morphological factors are concerned, so morphology simply refers to the shape, morphology simply refers to the form, morphology also simply refers to the land use pattern. Land use pattern. So here the question is that how the origin and growth of the town. So growth and origin and growth of town is not a new phenomena. So we have lots of phenomena, like you will have the economic activity, agriculture. So agriculture led development of the towns and cities, then the trade led development of town and cities, the development of town and cities based on location, geographical location, like nearby the river, nearby the coast. It has also, then we will have the cultural, socio-cultural aspect. So from time to time the different things, political like whenever the new political system will evolve, so obviously they will tend to develop new urban area, like the Agra has been developed in India, Delhi has been developed in India. Later on when the Britishers came, they tried to first set up their base in case of Kolkata, but later on when the capital has been shifted to Delhi, so the Delhi has over the period of time grown as an urban area. So all these things needs to be written. Moving to the next question, discuss the role of transportation accessibility in regional development. So discuss the role of transportation accessibility in regional development. As far as regional development is concerned, regional development is a concept which simply considers and appreciates that there exists regional inequality. So there exists a regional inequality, and to fill that regional inequality, they have this concept that regional development. So the development should be based on in some particular area. So their thought process is development cannot happen everywhere. So that is why they go for the regional development. You will have a different ideas, economic ideas that has been given. Like you will have the very prominent central place theory. Then you will have the idea of growth pole, growth center. Then you will have the idea of core periphery model. Even the economic theories like Weber's industrial location theory, von Theunen's agricultural location theory, in all the theories of regional development you will find there is a role of transportation. Till today you will find those countries that are having the better, faster, cheaper, efficient mode of transport, they are more developed, because it will help you out in transporting the raw material, labor force to the industry, and from the industry finished goods to market. So transportation is one of the very dominating factor in the regional development. Last question. So this discuss the role of transportation, 5th D. This was the question from the regional planning, and 5th C was the question that was primarily from the settlement geography, population settlement chapter. 5th B, that was the question from the economic geography. Question number 5th E, last part of this question number 5. Explain the geometric boundaries with example. As far as geometric boundaries, so this question is primarily the models and theories. In models and theories, you will find most of the topics of models and theories associated with the different chapters of your section B. The only topic that is your boundaries and frontiers, so that is not synced with that any of the chapter, and the question has been asked from that. As far as boundaries are concerned, boundaries are simply they limit the sovereignty of any particular state. So we have the concept of boundary, which is limits of sovereignty of any country, or you can say the limit of any state, and how this concept has evolved from the frontier. But as far as this question is concerned, so the geometric boundary is the boundary that is being represented by the latitudes, longitudes, or any fixed line. Even the arc of circle having same radius, so that is also part of geometric boundary. As far as geometric boundary, history is very not that much old, but in the modern time it's considerably old. You will find that during the 15th century, somewhere around 1495, the Pope, there has been some of the part that has been discovered, and still there was existing some of the part that was not discovered. So the undiscovered part has been divided by the Pope between the Spain and Portugal. So that was the form of the boundary. In the modern time period, you will find the 17th parallel is there, 49th parallel is there, 38th parallel is there. All these are the geometric boundary that you need to write. Moving to the next question. 6a. Culture is a dynamic concept. Elucidate with the example. So again, I have talked about the lot of things about the culture. So as far as culture is concerned, culture is associated with the language, ideas, how people think. It is associated with the religion, food habits, festivals. So there are multiple things about the culture, and the culture is not a fix. Why the culture is not fixed? Because people keep on moving from one place to another place. There will be a movement of people, movement of ideas. There will be some new political system that will come out. New rulers will come out. The rulers will, not only that, even the dressing sense, dressing habits, eating habits, all these are part of it. In earlier time period, some of the traders were moving from one place to another place. In the modern time period, if you will look out, अगर आप देखने का try करेंगे, like in modern time, the most important influences of the culture happens to be the cinema. So in last 40-50 years, you will have the cinema. Some celebrities happens to be the torchbearer of the cultural changes. You will find that different festivals are being celebrated from this part to the different part of the country. Like very famous festival, you will have the like in our country, you will find the different festivals. Very good example, you will have the Karwa Chauth. Then you will have also very good example like Ganesh Puja. So the different earlier these festivals were being limited to one particular part of the country, but now with the more advancement in the communication, more movement of the people from one part to other, so that there has been changes. So this is what you are supposed to write. Also, it is not a new phenomena. In fact, from the ancient, or you can say pre-classical geographers, classical geographers, like you will have the Radgel is there, Humboldt is there, Karl Ritter is there. All of them, they have appreciated the role of nature, the role of people, and how the people are getting affected by the environment, and how the people are affecting the environment. So be it your determinism, be it your possibilism, in both culture has been appreciated. So all these things needs to be written. Moving to the next question. Automation is rapidly changing the economies of labor and will affect trade patterns in significant ways. So they have asked one question related to the changing trade patterns and one more question, but here that question was associated with simple shifting of trade pattern. Here they are asking within the backdrop of automation. So in this question more focus should be on role of computer led services, Internet of the Things can be talked up, artificial intelligence can be talked up. So automation is rapidly changing the economies of labor. Now within that backdrop you need to talk about the labor. As far as any economic model is there, the labor is very important. So be it your von Thunen, be it any model, Weber, labor is important. In fact, if you will look out the Weber theory, so first Weber talks about the transportation. But when the Weber has modified the theory, so he has given the concept of labor related industrial location. So he has come out with the concept of isodepane, critical isodepane, where he appreciated that cheap and efficient labor is very important. So labor happens to be one of the most ingredient component of any economic development. But over the period of time, you will find that there has been discrimination in the labor. Most of the labor industry was being dominated by the male. You can highlight that how this automation and all these, there has been a threat perception, there has been a perception that it will take away lots of job. But you need to understand that for development of automation, development of all these services, there is need of the labor. Yes, that is high skilled labor, but there is nothing called that there will be this automation or Internet of the Things will take away the labor. Nothing. It is not going to happen. Rather, it will open up more avenues. So more growth of business. In fact, there will be new entrants. So there will be more and more new entrants. You can give the examples of how the things are changing during from the COVID time period. Also, you can write that this automation is bringing more and more women workforce. So there will be more gender parity. So all these things can be written. Moving to the next question, that is 6C. Overcrowding leads to chronic problem of shortage of housing in Indian cities. Explain citing relevant example. So basically question is asking about the overcrowding से जो shortage हो रही है housing की. So overcrowding leads to chronic problem of shortage of housing in Indian cities. So shortage of housing. This is very big challenge, big issue in India. And I am sure that most of you must have written that shortage of Indian housing, shortage of housing in Indian cities. So how it is becoming a problem, you must have written. But one more component of this question is overcrowding. So the first question is why this overpopulation? So you need to write few paragraph about this overpopulation. This overpopulation is because of urban primacy. Why people are like to move in the urban area? Why people are only moving to the Mumbai, only moving to the Delhi? The Delhi's population that was roughly around 17 million 10 years back. The official data has not yet come out as per census, but presently it is being estimated that present population is 32 million. Mumbai's population is roughly 20 million. So this is the referred as urban primacy. So all the means of growth is limited to that particular area of the country, and it is pulling up all the things towards that. So the urban primacy is existing. That is the main reason of overpopulation. The life, the luxurious life is there, the city life is there. That is why most of the people wanted to go in that area. So within that backdrop you need to write. So there has been over the period of time some governmental policies like satellite towns have been set up. Satellite towns, it was thought that they will take away some of the population. Then in the present time period, you will have some of the port cities are being thought of as part of Sagarmala. So it is being thought that port cities will be developed, more and more cities that will be industrial town. But ultimately you need to write, and you need to give the examples of these four metropolitan cities like Delhi, Mumbai and Chennai. That in Delhi, when the congestion has started, overcrowding has started, so government has come out with a concept of NCR, the Gurugram, the Noida has been developed. But over the period of time, this Noida and Gurugram has become part of the Delhi. So they have become part of Delhi, and this overcrowding is particularly continuously happening. So as far as problem is concerned, definitely you can write about the different problems, the drainage facilities there, problem of drinking water is there. Then you can talk about the slums development. But along with that, you also need to write some solutions. So in solution, the only solution, you can say the way out from the geographer's perspective is, rather than focusing on horizontal growth of cities, now is the time that throughout the country we need to focus on vertical growth of the cities. So vertical growth of the cities needs to be focused on. So this is how you can write this question. Moving to next question. Climate change is a serious problem to global food security and poverty eradication. Critically examine question number 7A. So how the climate change is becoming serious problem to global food security? Role of climate change over global food security. So here very interesting thing, mainly you need to write about the role of climate change over the agriculture. Agriculture का ही main aspect रखना है. As far as climate change is concerned, what is the meaning of climate change? What are the different component of climate change that needs to be written? Meaning, component needs to be written. Now here, as far as food security is concerned, different aspect of the food security like availability, accessibility, affordability. This needs to be highlighted. When you will write all these things that yes, climate change is affecting the agricultural produce and the production is decreasing, it is getting affected. Very good examples you can write. The recent crisis of wheat. So the wheat crisis that India is facing, the global world is facing, within that backdrop, this question has been framed, and you have to write that. You have to write that. Importance of this food in case of some of the countries like African countries, some of the South American countries, you need to write. Moving to the next question. Static question from the geographical thought. Critically examine the significance of quantitative revolution and its influence in the development of geography. So it is from the evolution of the geography as far as quantitative revolution is concerned. It is part of some of the new approaches, new technique that has evolved after the Second World War. It was the areal differentiation, Hirschhorn's areal differentiation, which has been countered by the quantitative revolution. Mainly this quantitative revolution, the model building in geography have primarily started from the America. It was B.J.L. Berry and W. Bunge, which is credited to start with this thought process, this new approach in geography, which has been carried forward by the very famous Chorley in Britain and also very famous Peter Haggett's. As far as this quantitative revolution is concerned, it is mainly associated with the model building, law making. So the objective is generalizing the phenomena to find out some of the models for the problem that the humanity is facing. So there will be an overestimate, there will be a prediction. So different predictive model will be developed. Like you will have the historic, and models are being categorized in different category. Like you will have very famous model like historical model. So historical model like demographic transition theory. So demographic transition theory traces and it predicts that how the population will grow. Then you will have mathematical model. Mathematical model like you will have the very famous gravity model of migration. Then you will have a rank size rule. So rank size rule will predict how the spacing and size of the cities are associated. So all these things you need to write, but you have to write critical analysis. So in critical analysis you need to write that over the period of time, this model has been heavily criticized on it's some of the assumptions, like in most of the human geography theory, there was a assumption of the rational economic man. So human decisions is not being only based on the rationality, the thought process, the values, the attitude of the humans thinking has been almost neglected in this. And for every time there is some issue of sample data, because to come out with some model you need to take out some data, and the data is like, let's say India population is 1.22 billion. So out of 1.2 billion, if you are just collecting the data from 5,000 people, so that is almost irrelevant, absurd. So because of all these things, quantitative revolution almost not able to satisfy the needs of that time period, and which led to the oncoming of critical revolution, then behavioral geography, then radical geography, then humanistic geography. So briefly you can write. Moving to the next question. Explain in detail the impact of regional disparities on economic development. So here you have to write the regional disparity. So first you need to write the regional disparity. So regional disparity, when you will write, so why the regional disparity is existing? The regional disparity can be geographical, it can be climatic, it can be historical, it can be political, it can be based on socio-cultural. So all these is related with the regional inequality. So there exists a regional inequality, and regional inequalities is associated with the economic development. Like some of the region might be having the huge mineral resources. The classical example in case of India, you will have the Chota Nagpur Plateau. So Chota Nagpur Plateau is having huge amount of mineral resources. Might be some of the area that is not having the mineral resources, but still Chota Nagpur Plateau is not that much developed. Or you can have Thar Desert. So Ladakh. So those are the area that are having some of the climatic extremity. So simply that needs to be written. Moving to the next question. 8th A. How migration is affected by push and pull factors. So simply you need to write about the migration. So migration is movement of the people from one place to another place for significant time period. Some of the movements, like you will have the translocation is there, transhuman movement is there, circulation is there. That is not being considered as the climatic migrate, like in case of extreme condition, people are having tendency to migrate from one part to other. So those are not considered as migration, but other than this, all the other movement is being considered as migration. So migration is having caused by the push factor and pull factor. So push factor are simply which is forcing a people to move out from that area. So it can be poverty, it can be some of the social classes, it can be some of the like in case of India, some of the low agricultural productivity, no employment opportunity. So all the things that are pushing a person to move out from that area, whereas pull factor is simply attractive. So attractive, it can be having high wage rate, it can be like good economic opportunity, industries are there, electricity are there, hospitals are there, transportations are there. So that is what you need to write. The second part is explain how these factors play a role in understanding new settlement pattern. So in case of new settlement pattern, always try to relate, like you will have the how the Delhi over the period of time have grown in such a kind of city, like in 1911 when the Britishers have shifted Delhi as a capital. So at that time population was very low, but over the period of time industry have been set up, more and more opportunities have been created. So the people have migrated to these areas. Also Mumbai, that was historically an industrial town, so that also have attracted most of the people. So mostly you can write about that urban primacy, which I have talked in other question, that it is the pull factor of the city, gravity of the city. Moving to the second last question, explain the relevance and applicability of von Thunen theory of agriculture, location in today's world. So direct question from the one of the location theory, it is one of the earliest, most we have primarily the three locational theory, von Thunen's agricultural location, Alfred Weber's industrial location, Christoller's central place theory. So this is one of the very important economic theory, and the idea of the von Thunen was to identify, to predict the agricultural land use. Why some of the crops are being cultivated where it is being cultivated. He was just trying to suggest that around the city area you need to cultivate the crops that are more profitable. He divided the zone in different, he divided the land in different concentric circle. So nearby the city he simply suggested that you need to have a horticulture, you need to have a flowers, vegetables, that is very important. In zone second he talks about that there is a need of some wood, some lumbering should be there, because during the 18th century the most important source of fuel was the wood. So because the wood is important for the city, wood is important for preparation of food, so he has given to it more importance. In the third zone he talks about the agricultural zone, so in agricultural activity but without any kind of fallowing should be there. In the fourth zone he talks about the agriculture where the different crops needs to be cultivated, but there should be a different particularly there should be a different system like 7-year crop rotation. Then you will have a case of next zone where there will be a 3 field system will be set up, and in the last zone he talks about simply that it should be dedicated to the some of the meat industry, some of the animal husbandry. So he simply talks about that. So you have to write about the von Thunen. So you have to write about the von Thunen's model and the relevance. As far as relevance is concerned, you have to talk about give the examples of Europe, you can give the examples of India. Even in India, in most of the village area, you will find the nearby the village area, you will have primarily the vegetable is being cultivated, the fruits are being cultivated. So vegetable fruits are being cultivated in and around the particularly village area, and around that all the other agricultural fields are there. So it is having the considerably more important particularly relevance. So you can write that even in till today in most of the urban area there has been some form of the relevance. Last question, discuss the concept of rank size rule given by G.K. Jiff. So in this rule relevant in Indian context. So the last question says about the rank size rule. Rank size rule is associated with the size and spacing of cities. It has been given by the G.K. Jiff in 1949. He simply suggested if in any country, if we will just arrange the cities in a descending order. So largest city P1, next is P2, next is P3. So he simply suggested the nth city will be 1 by nth time of the largest city. So means if you want to check out the second city population, so that will be half of the largest city. The third city, it will be 1/3 of the largest city. So he simply suggested that this is how the size of settlement is in any particular country exists. So it is also particularly based on that quantitative revolution. As far as the relevance is concerned, in India or most of the developing countries, the rule is not very much applicable, as in India you will find that the population of Delhi, Mumbai and metropolitan cities is almost very much nearby. Like Delhi's population as per last census was roughly 14-15 million. The Mumbai's population was also around that. Chennai's population was around 10. Kolkata's population, Chennai's population was also around 8-9. So very nearby. Even in 2022, Delhi population is 32 million. It's a rough estimate, and Mumbai's population is around 20 million. As far as Kolkata's population is there, so it is roughly 15 million. Chennai is 11 million. So even here also, you will find that second city is not half of the first city, third city is not 1/3 of topmost city. So as far as India is concerned, rank size rule is not applicable. In state also, in India we have a primacy exists in some of the state, not the rank size rule. Few states we have some applicability, like Rajasthan is one of the state where it is considered that rank size rule is applicable. So this is how you have to write the answer. This is how you have to write this question. So that's all from my side for this paper 1. In the next session, we will discuss the paper 2. Thank you.